They pretended I didn't exist, like I was a ghost haunting a house I once called home. But I rose. I built a life they only dared to dream about. My name is Jane. For years, I was the quiet daughter. No one wanted to see the shadow slipping between family photos, the silence hanging heavy in every room I entered. I was there, but invisible. Present, yet erased. I remember that night Christmas Eve as if it were yesterday. The world outside sparkled with lights and laughter, but inside our old, dim living room, I sat clutching the cold receiver of our rotary phone. My heart hammered against my ribs. Someone will call, I whispered to myself, desperate for even the smallest sign of love. Someone will want me there. But the phone stayed silent. Second after second, the silence pressed harder on my chest, squeezing the fragile hope I tried to hold onto into tiny, painful shards. I bit my lip until it bled, trying to stop the tears, but they slipped down anyway, silent tears for a love withheld, for a daughter deliberately erased. Later, I learned they had gathered. My family laughing, sharing stories, celebrating. Without me, I wasn't just left out, I was deliberately erased. That moment didn't just break me, it defined years filled with empty chairs, holidays shadowed by whispered secrets, and dinners where my presence was ignored. I can still hear the hushed whispers behind closed doors, the sidelong glances of cousins talking just loud enough for me to catch, the way relatives avoided my eyes like I was contagious. One evening, overhearing my mother whisper to an aunt, I caught the words, "She's always been the one we could ignore." That sentence sliced through me like a blade. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, why me? Why am I not enough? Was I too quiet, too different, not worth the trouble? The questions churned inside me relentlessly, unforgiving and sharp. I tried to fix myself, tried to become the daughter they wanted, but their love was always just out of reach. Yet, deep inside, a tiny spark refused to die. A whisper in the dark, "You are more than their rejection." Books became my escape. The night sky, my only friend. Quiet walks beneath the stars gave me space to dream, to imagine a life I could own, a life not dependent on their approval. I pictured a house grand, warm, filled with light and love, a sanctuary where I belonged. That fragile hope was planted in barren soil. It grew quietly, fiercely. It became my silent rebellion against a world that tried to erase me. Now, standing in the mansion I built with my own hands, I don't dwell on empty chairs or whispered rumors. These walls hold my story, a story of persistence, courage, and quiet victories. This is more than a house. It's proof that even the invisible can rise. So, I ask you, who in your life made you feel invisible? How did you fight to reclaim your place? Share your story below. Your voice matters. Because what happened next, the moment that changed everything no one saw coming? After that Christmas night, the silence wasn't just around me. It grew inside me like a relentless storm, tearing at my soul. It was a war between who I was and who I thought I should be. Each day, I woke with a heavy knot in my stomach, a quiet dread that my voice would go unheard again, that my efforts would remain invisible. I remember whispering in the dark, "Why am I never enough? Not for them, not for anyone." Some days, that question was a scream trapped in my chest. The battle inside me was raw and merciless. One night, I sat alone, clutching my journal. Tears spilled onto the pages as I wrote, "I'm tired of shrinking. I want to be seen. I want to be loved. But how do I become enough when no one believes in me?" That was when the storm inside me almost swallowed everything. But even in the darkest corners, a fierce spark flickered, a voice whispering, "You are more than this." I clung to those brief, fierce moments like a lifeline. Then came the breaking point, a moment that cut deeper than all the cold shoulders combined. It was during a family gathering, a rare one. I overheard my cousin muttering, "She's nothing but a shadow, always fading away. What's the point in even inviting her?" My heart shattered in a way I hadn't thought possible. Later, in the kitchen, I confronted my mother. Her eyes avoided mine. "Why do you pretend I don't exist?" I demanded. She turned away, voice cold. "We don't want trouble, Jane. You make things difficult." "Difficult?" I echoed, voice trembling with anger and hurt. I'm your daughter. I deserve to be seen. She snapped back. Sometimes you make yourself invisible. Maybe you like it that way. I froze. Was I really invisible because I chose to be? Or had they erased me so completely that I didn't know how to exist any other way? This was the moment I realized the fight was no longer just for their approval, it was for me. I needed to find my voice, my strength, not theirs. So I ask you, whoever you are watching this, has someone you loved ever made you feel invisible like I did? How did you fight to reclaim your place in your own story? Have you ever faced the hardest battle, forgiving yourself for wounds others inflicted? Your story matters. Please share it in the comments below. We are stronger when we rise together. That night, I didn't just cry, I made a vow. I will no longer be a ghost in my own life. From that moment on, the storm inside me became a fire to burn through the chains of rejection, to forge a path of my own making. I began writing, filling journals with my fears, small victories, and tangled thoughts. Writing became my sanctuary, a conversation with myself that untangled the mess inside. Slowly, I learned to listen to the quiet, steady voice beneath the noise my own voice. I stopped trying to change who I was. Instead, I embraced the quiet moments, the awkward silences, and my imperfect heart. Strength, I realized, wasn't loud or perfect. It was surviving battles no one else saw. The hardest battle? Forgiving myself. For years, I blamed my flaws for the distance between me and the family I longed for. But forgiveness unlocked something new, self-love. It didn't happen overnight. Some days, doubts clawed at me. Loneliness crept in like a shadow. But I met those feelings with kindness, not judgment. In that internal war, I found freedom. Not freedom from pain, but freedom to be whole, worthy, just as I am. That freedom was the first step not to a mansion or a name, but to a life filled with meaning, peace, and purpose. And it all began inside me. The world outside my heart felt like a cage, slowly tightening with every passing day. Their rejection was not a sudden explosion, but a slow, grinding pressure, small cuts that bled quietly, leaving scars no one could see. Invitations stopped coming. Smiles never reached their eyes. Conversations stopped the moment I walked into a room. I remember one Christmas like it was yesterday. The house sparkled with lights and laughter. I sat alone in my dim room, clutching a card in trembling hands. It was anonymous, but the words were clear, cutting through me like ice. Jane's absence makes the party better. Those words shattered everything I believed in. The pain wasn't just from being excluded, it was from knowing it was deliberate. Later, at the family dinner, whispers floated in the air like poisonous smoke. Cousins exchanged cruel jokes aimed at me, their eyes flicking with amusement at my discomfort. My parents' friends exchanged pitying looks that burned deeper than anger. I heard a distant relative whisper, "She's always been the black sheep." I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But my voice was swallowed in silence. That moment crystallized the cruel truth. I didn't just feel invisible, I was being erased. One evening, I confronted my sister in a rare moment when we were alone. "Why do you treat me like I'm not even here?" I asked, voice cracking. She looked away, biting her lip. "It's not like that," she said softly. "It's just complicated." Complicated? I echoed, disbelief flooding me. Is it complicated enough to pretend your own sister doesn't exist? She hesitated, then whispered, "Maybe we're all just scared. Scared of what happens if we let you in." That sentence lingered. Was their rejection really fear disguised as cruelty? There was betrayal too. A cousin I once trusted twisted my quiet nature into suspicion and gossip. A sibling dismissed my achievements as mere luck, as if I didn't deserve the victories I fought so hard for. Each wound chipped away at the fragile foundation I was trying to build for myself. But the worst hurt came from what wasn't done, the hugs withheld, the calls unanswered, the absence when I needed them most. I wrote in my journal one night, "I am broken by what's been done, and by what's been left undone." Neglect can cut just as deep as hatred. Still, I refused to be broken. Every cold shoulder, every slight fueled a fire inside me. They wanted me small and invisible. I was determined to be neither. The weight of these conflicts was exhausting, guarding my heart, expecting rejection, navigating a world where love was conditional and belonging was rare. I longed simply to be seen, to be understood, to be loved for who I was, not for who they wanted me to be. And I wonder, have you ever felt that way? Have you been left out, not because of what you did, but because of who you were? How did you fight back when those you loved turned away? What fires burned inside you when rejection threatened to consume your life? Share your story in the comments. You're not alone. Some family members showed small kindnesses, islands of warmth in a cold sea. Friends became my chosen family, steady, real, and true. I learned that blood doesn't guarantee belonging. Sometimes, strangers offer more love than kin. In this crucible of conflict, I grew stronger. Not because the world was kind, but because I refused to be broken by cruelty. Every harsh word, every closed door became a stepping stone. I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing to rise. And rise I would. The walls that once closed in around me no longer trapped me, they ignited a fire inside, fierce and unyielding. The solitude I once feared became my sanctuary, a quiet refuge where I finally heard my own voice. Alone, I began to discover the real Janitha woman beyond the shadows cast by family coldness and rejection. The deafening silence transformed into a blank canvas, waiting for me to paint my dreams in vivid color. I had no roadmap, no blueprint for this life I was building from broken pieces. What I held on to was hope, stubborn and persistent, and a vision to create something meaningful from the fragments of my past. Step by step, I carved my own path. I enrolled in night classes, diving into subjects that ignited my curiosity, even if no one around me believed they mattered. I worked long hours in jobs that pushed me to my limits, fueled by the belief that every moment was a brick laid on the foundation of my future. But it wasn't always easy. Some nights, doubt crept in, whispering, "Who do you think you are? You don't belong here." I remember one evening, exhausted and overwhelmed. A voice inside me begged, "Maybe it's time to give up." But I answered back, louder and firmer, "No, this is my life. I am worthy. I will rise." Writing became my lifeline. In journals filled with fears, small victories, and tangled thoughts, I held conversations with myself away to untangle the mess inside. I learned to listen to that quiet, steady voice beneath the noise of rejection, my own voice. One rainy afternoon, sitting by the window, I whispered to the raindrops racing each other. "We're both battered by storms, but still moving forward." That image gave me courage I never knew I had. I didn't try to change who I was. I embraced it. The quiet moments, the awkward silences, the imperfect heart. I learned strength wasn't about being loud or perfect. It was about surviving battles no one else saw. The hardest battle was forgiving myself. For years, I blamed my flaws for the distance between me and the family I longed for. But forgiveness unlocked something new: self-love. It didn't happen overnight. Some days, loneliness crept in like a shadow. But I met those feelings with kindness, not judgment. In that internal war, I found freedom. Not freedom from pain, but freedom to be whole-worthy just as I am. And I wonder, have you ever struggled to forgive yourself when the world seemed to demand perfection? When did you find the courage to embrace your true self, flaws and all? How do you nurture the quiet voice inside you when doubt threatens to drown it out? Tell me your story. Your journey matters. As my confidence grew, I began to speak up. I started saying no without guilt. I set boundaries that protected my heart. I demanded respect, unapologetically. It was exhausting. There were moments I wanted to retreat back into the silence, where I felt safe from hurt. But I kept moving forward, because I knew that the life I wanted, one where I was seen, heard, and loved, was waiting on the other side of fear. Friends became my chosen family, steady hands in a stormy sea. Mentors offered guidance. Strangers showed kindness without judgment. Each new connection wove a tapestry of belonging and support. I realized something profound. Belonging isn't about blood. Sometimes, it's about the people who choose to stay. And that knowledge became my armor. My story isn't just about rejection, it's about resilience, about rising again and again. And it's about you. What small victories have helped you find your voice? Who has been your chosen family? Let's share and support each other in the comments below. Because your voice, your truth deserves to be heard. But the past never truly lets go. The weight of rejection still pressed down on me like a storm cloud ready to break. Family gatherings remained minefields. I remember one dinner, my voice barely above a whisper as my cousin sneered, "Jane, we almost forgot you existed tonight." The room froze. I looked at him, heart pounding, but words caught in my throat. Later, my mother avoided my gaze, muttering to a friend, "She's changed, but she's still the black sheep." Those words stung deeper than any insult. I wanted to scream, to ask, "Why me? Why this pain?" But the silence swallowed me. One night, alone in my room, I wrote in my journal, "How do you face those who never saw you, who never wanted you?" But the hardest moments weren't the harsh words, they were the absences. The hugs never given. The calls never returned. The silent nights where I wondered if anyone even cared. I remember whispering into the darkness, "I am broken by what was done, and by what was left undone." Yet, despite the wounds, I refused to be broken. Every cold shoulder, every whispered joke, fueled a fire inside. They wanted me small and invisible. I was determined to be neither. There were times I asked myself, how do you forgive those who hurt you without apology? Can you find peace when your heart still bleeds? Is it possible to love yourself when your own family did not? If you've ever wrestled with these questions, you're not alone. One evening, my sister confronted me. Her voice trembled, eyes searching mine. "Jane, can we start over? Can we be sisters again?" I paused. The memories flooded back the pain, the rejection. But I saw the flicker of sincerity in her eyes. I replied slowly, "I want that too, but trust isn't rebuilt in a day." She nodded, understanding. This was no fairy tale reconciliation. It was messy, fragile, and uncertain, but it was a start. These moments, shard and beautiful, became the turning points. I learned that healing isn't linear. It's a dance between hope and fear, between opening your heart and guarding your wounds. And through it all, I realized family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who chooses to walk beside you, who respects your scars, who sees your light even when you can't. So I ask you now, who in your life has challenged you to forgive? When have you taken the hardest step toward healing? How do you protect your heart while learning to trust again? Your story matters. Share your journey. Your voice can light the way for others. Because none of us walk this path alone. The fire inside me was no longer just a flicker, it was a blaze. After years of silence, loneliness, and pain, I was ready to stand tall. I started to rebuild my life not by asking for their acceptance, but by creating my own. One night, as I sat alone in my small apartment, I whispered to myself, "This is my life, I'm done shrinking." The journey wasn't easy. There were days when doubt crept in, whispering, "Are you really enough?" But every time, I pushed back harder. I surrounded myself with people who saw me, truly saw me. Friends who celebrated my victories and held my hand through the storms. Mentors who believed in my potential even when I couldn't see it. And most importantly, I learned to be my own champion. I filled notebooks with dreams, plans, and affirmations. I am worthy. I am strong. I am more than their rejection. Slowly, those words became my truth. And with every step forward, the mansion I once dreamed of took shape. Not just in brick and mortar, but in every choice, every risk, every moment I refused to give up. One evening, after a long day of work and study, I called my mother. Her voice trembled on the other end. "Jane, I'm proud of you." Tears welled up in my eyes. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. The walls I built around my heart began to soften. Trust, like glass, was fragile but worth the careful repair. I asked myself, how do you rise when the world has tried to keep you down? What does strength look like after so much pain? Can you find peace in a life you've built from nothing? If you've faced similar battles, I want you to know this. You are not alone. Your scars are proof of your courage. Your story is still being written. So tell me, when did you first realize your own strength? What helped you stand up after being pushed down? How do you hold on to hope in the darkest moments? Your voice can inspire someone still searching for their light. This is our journey, messy, painful, beautiful. Together, we rise. The day I stepped into that grand hall, the air was thick with tension, heavier than I ever imagined. Faces that once ignored me turned pale. Eyes that never met mine were suddenly fixed, wide, and searching. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a storm barely contained. But I wasn't there for their shock. I was there to claim my truth. The woman standing before them wasn't the invisible daughter anymore. I was Jane Strong, unshaken, victorious. My father's gaze locked with mine, his eyes telling stories of regret and confusion. My mother's lips pressed tight, torn between pride and pain. My siblings exchanged uneasy glances, caught between the sister they rejected and the woman they could no longer ignore. I took a breath and spoke steady, clear. I'm here to tell the truth. The years of neglect, the whispered lies, the betrayals you tried to hide. The room fell silent. My uncle shifted uncomfortably, attempting to interrupt. Jane, we never wanted. I cut him off sharply. You never wanted what? To see me? To hear me? To love me? My voice echoed. A cousin whispered behind her hand. She's changed, but some wounds never heal. I met her gaze unflinchingly. Maybe, but I refused to live as a wound. Tears welled in my mother's eyes. Her voice cracked as she murmured, "We didn't know how to fix this." I replied softly, yet with strength. It's not too late to try. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom, freedom to live on my own terms, to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, starting with myself. Some family members reached out hesitantly, their faces softening with the hope of healing. Others recoiled, unwilling or unable to face the new reality. I understood then. Healing is a journey, not a destination. That day marked my turning point. The collision of past and present. Behind me, the mansion stood tall, a monument to resilience, a beacon proving that even in the darkest nights, a single spark can ignite a blaze. And I was ready to burn bright. The weeks that followed were nothing like I expected. Old wounds surfaced. Some family members recoiled in fear. Others reached out with trembling hands. Forgiveness wasn't a gift freely given. It was earned through battle, pain, and understanding. I found myself standing at a crossroads. Could I let them back in? Should I? The wounds ran deep. Memories clashed with hope. Every interaction tested my boundaries and vulnerability. I wasn't fighting just for acceptance anymore. I was fighting for peace. Sometimes fear whispered, "What if they hurt you again?" But I answered, "I am stronger than my fears." I redefined family. It wasn't just blood or history. It was messy, complicated, sometimes painful, but also capable of healing. I learned to protect myself fiercely, to say no without guilt, to step back when trust was broken. Some days, retreating into solitude felt safer than risking heartbreak. But I was no longer the girl who silently endured. I was a woman navigating love and loss, strength and vulnerability. Beyond family, I found chosen family friends, mentors, strangers, who showed kindness without judgment. They nourished my spirit and reminded me that belonging isn't always about blood. Success brought challenges, scrutiny, jealousy, isolation, but I faced them with resilience born from years of struggle. Healing was not linear. It flowed like tides, pulling back and pushing forward. Through it all, the mansion was my anchor, a symbol of everything I had overcome and the infinite possibilities ahead. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, but I am no longer defined by rejection or silence. I am defined by the courage to rise again and again. And that, I know, is enough. Standing in the grand foyer, I feel a calm I once thought impossible. The echoes of pain have softened into whispers, no longer chains but lessons. I am Jane, a woman who walked through fire and emerged whole. This house, with its sunlit windows and sprawling rooms, is more than bricks and mortar. It's a testament to resilience, hope, and the quiet power of never giving up on yourself. Every corner tells a story of struggle and triumph. Every beam holds the weight of dreams turned real. But here is the truth I want to share with you. Life is not about reaching a destination. It's about the journey, the wounds healed, the bridges rebuilt, the grace found in unexpected places. Growth isn't neat. It's messy. It asks us to face shadows and hold space for pain and joy. Family isn't just blood. It's connection, respect, love in whatever form that takes. Sometimes family is friends who choose to stay, strangers who become companions, and most importantly, self-love, the embrace that lasts a lifetime. The future stretches out wide and uncertain. But instead of fear, I feel possibility. I've learned to welcome the unknown with open arms, to trust the light I carry within to guide my steps. And now, I invite you, whoever you are, whoever you felt invisible or hurt by, to know this. Your story is not defined by their acceptance or rejection. Your worth is measured by the courage you show to keep moving forward. In your darkest moments, find your voice. In your silence, seek your light. Build your own mansion, not just of stone, but of dreams, resilience, and love. You have the power to write your own story. I am living proof. If my story moved you, don't keep it inside. Share your journey in the comments below. Your voice matters. If you believe in the power of rising again, please like, share, and subscribe. Join a community of survivors, warriors, and dreamers. Remember, you are never alone. There is a light ahead, and it's waiting for you to step boldly into it.